It's Wednesday, September 4th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Motherhood is beautiful, but it can also be scary and stressful. Today on the show, we will talk about what supports exist and what's needed for new moms in this province. It's everything from health to social circles of support. All right, we got a packed studio for the conversation today, and we're going to have a call around the halfway point. And also, if you're listening to the show and you've got thoughts for us, send us an email today, thesignal@cbc.ca. There's no text line today. Amanda Gear's off, so I'm just personing the emails by myself here. thesignal@cbc.ca. Sylvia Bermudez, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Tell me about this show idea. Because you were on the show. When was the last time you were on? Like, was it a couple months ago, right? We're talking about
months, roughly.
and then
we're talking about home.
Yeah, we're like, we should do something else. And you sent me an email.
Yeah, so recently became a mom 5 months ago, and I think that concept of home, letting you know that I wasn't originally from here and finding friends, a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
But in particular, as I sort of stepped into motherhood this time around, a lot of my sort of immediate friends weren't going through it at the same time, and I found myself, oh my God, this is a bit of a different experience, not having your close buddies going through it. So, in that process, I kind of looked around and felt a bit lonely, and I said, well, my village is not there, so I got to start creating one. And in that, I started a little stroller club. And anyways, I thought it'd be an interesting idea to kind of discuss more broadly what the experience of motherhood can be for others and what's out there to kind of help us out as we navigate the craziness, the messiness, the happies, the everything around it, right?
Yeah, and it has to do with the health and happiness of the individual, the family unit, the community, connecting communities, growing the population, the health of I mean, it's all connected, right? Like
Indeed.
all of it. So thanks for helping set up the why for the show. Not that we overly need an explanation as to why there needs to be there should be these types of conversations.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for coming in. Let's see. We've got Amy Peñarrubia. How you doing?
Good, thank you. That was great.
Thank
Great
you.
pronunciation.
Thank you very much. Tell us about yourself.
So I am a mom of 2 boys. I actually had my first baby during the pandemic, and feel like pandemic moms can probably relate to this. We didn't have all the things that we thought we would have during, like, what maternity leave would look like. And I feel like I didn't realize kind of how lonely and how that experience was until I had my second. And I really got to, like, indulge in everything that was out there. I also didn't really have a village. A lot of my friends are in different stages of life, and really privileged that I have a lot of support from family and friends, but, like, moms just get it. So having that community of other moms to, like, really talk to about, those late night things and the things that go through your head, you really need that. So I joined Stroller Club in May. I joined in the founding members of the Harbor, which I'll talk about a little bit more, and really want to just spread the word to moms who don't have that support to kind of, seek it out. One of the messages we send in Stroller Club is, don't be afraid to come by yourself, because that's what we want. We want to meet new people. When new people come, we kind of we're always watching to see, is anyone walking by themselves? Let's go talk to those people. Let's make sure everybody feels supported and connected. And through doing that, I think joining these groups has really helped my own postpartum loneliness and really just given me, I guess, a sense of purpose to help other moms, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. Well, thanks for coming. Carolyn Pridham, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Tell us about yourself.
So I am a pelvic floor physiotherapist, and I own a clinic that focuses in pelvic health in the East End of St. John's called Vitality Wellness. And then I also own a sister company called VIA, which is a pelvic health-focused athletic wear brand as well. So it has originally, when we started to develop the brand, we had the postpartum body in mind when we made the leggings and everything. So yeah, we kind of see all ages at our clinic, anywhere from pediatric patients right up to my oldest patient, I think, was 92. But a large group of our population is postpartum or during pregnancy. We see a lot of people. So yeah, we've kind of focused our clinic into pelvic health, and we have a couple different disciplines there.
Excellent. And Kalia Cadigan, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Tell us about yourself, and then we'll jump into the harbor. Right? Not literally into the harbor, but we'll jump into talking about the harbor. I was like, what? What am I saying?
All right, let's go jump in the harbor. So Clea Cadigan, also a mommy of two boys. I have a almost 12-week-old and a 2.5-year-old, so pretty busy. But I guess I kind of started the harbor, which we can kind of get into later, but I really, really struggled with my first son, postpartum, had postpartum anxiety. And it was the first time I experienced anxiety in my life.
Yeah, because you hadn't felt any anxiety before, then all of a sudden it's like, what's happening?
Exactly. So at first I didn't really understand what I was feeling. And it wasn't until I started talking to other moms about it that they were like, yeah, I experienced postpartum anxiety. I experienced postpartum depression. I had baby blues. And I was like, why aren't we talking more about this? And it kind of led me to kind of seek out, why don't we have more peer-to-peer support and resources for peer-to-peer support in the province?
And then when does the idea for the harbor come into this?
So once I kind of saw that gap in the resources in Newfoundland and Labrador, I decided to start an Instagram account initially called Slumble Baby. And we actually launched our own line of sleep sacks, which I'm super proud of. But it wasn't the solution to the problem that I was having, and that was the lack of community postpartum and openness about mental health and perinatal mental health. So back in May, I decided I wanted to start a community-based membership to support motherhood. And I kind of put it out to my socials, just saying I can't build this alone because my experience postpartum is going to be different than anybody else's. And I had 10, now 11 incredible individuals reach out, and they wanted to build it with me. That's cool. Since then, we've been meeting and building out this incredible membership, and which will be launching in October. Right. And it'll be all about providing resources, 24/7 online support through our app or website, weekly meetings, monthly webinars, and a monthly in-person get-together. So you can have that face-to-face time too if you need it.
So there's that saying, right? It takes a village to raise a child. What does that mean, looking at it through a 2024 going into 2025 lens these days?
I can kind of touch on that at first.
Go for it.
Because I think that one of the things with the harbor was the village looks very different now. And not everyone's situation is different. So with the harbor, we hope to bring the village to you and to bring, the relationships, the communication, the support, encouragement, and resources, because not everybody has that family unit around them that can support them, or parents or aunts, or have been around people raising babies before. You constantly feel like you're failing as a parent, but you're not. You're just constantly learning and doing something different every day. I think we can all agree on that one.
Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think on that, it's also feeling like the desire of being understood, right? Being seen in some kind of way, right? Like you can be in your head for most of the day with a little human that can't really talk back or reason with you. So having someone else to bounce ideas off of can be so relieving and freeing too, right? Because sometimes if you keep that inside, that weighs you down and makes you, and quite frankly, can also make you feel a little bit lonely in terms of am I the only one that feels this? Because everyone's telling me I'm supposed to be, this is the best part of my life, or this is supposed to be the height of all heights. The motherhood's the best thing you'll ever do. That's all everyone's telling you.
Yeah.
But sometimes it doesn't feel like that.
There's a lot of fine print, or underneath that, right?
Yeah. So I think, I'm not sure if it's any different from someone in 1983 or, 1952. I think it's, maybe we're just a little bit more open about talking about it a little bit more openly, and perhaps conversations like this allows others to feel a little less lonely.
A little less lonely.
Yeah.
Right, peer-to-peer support. Well, we just did a show a couple of weeks ago around menopause, and I find it's the same type of bit about folks, women, saying, I feel isolated, alone, not knowing there's others out there going through the exact same thing, stuff that's like so many people in their networks and friend groups, family groups will be experiencing, yet there's an isolation there. And here we are talking to new moms. And it's similar. It's like I didn't about some of the isolation, some of the feelings, not knowing what you're kind of going through, and then seeking peer-to-peer support and the importance of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. Sylvia, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like there's nothing more like when someone says, I went through that too, it's going to be okay, here's what I did, or it's just like, such a weight lifted off your shoulders, because you're like, as soon as you hear that someone else went through it, it's like, okay, I can do this, and I'm not going crazy, it's okay, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
That is just so powerful.
It's like the first time where feeling unique doesn't feel
Yes. 100%.
But I think the other component is a lot of us are kind of navigating this for the first time. Maybe it's the second time, but every experience is unique. And so, and it comes with its own challenges, right? So being able to kind of have someone to kind of say, I'm going through this. And by the way, did you hear about Carolyn's amazing clinic? If you're kind of laughing and having an issue, why don't you chat to her? Too much information on live radio, perhaps. But
No, it's all good.
No, but the reality is you're probably seeing, for you, it must be something that's like, this is so normal. Everyone has this issue, but yet, no one talks about it because they're embarrassed.
And we always say, it's so common, not normal, because it's something that we can improve on, something that we can help with.
Totally.
And I find a lot of my patients that have maybe gone through menopause and they're a bit older and have had kids in the past, they look at, which is really nice to see, they look at this generation of maybe their kids now having kids and having their grandkids. And they say, I wish I had that when I was younger. I wish that postpartum I had have come to a clinic like this sooner. If they're, let's say they're having leakage, or they have signs of prolapse, or if they're having pain with any type of insertion vaginally, then, these are things that they didn't talk about back then. So I think conversations like this are really important. And like I said, a lot of those patients say that they wish that was around. And in our case, pelvic floor physio, that's really only been in the forefront of media, or just even as a part of physiotherapy in the last, let's say, 10 to 20 years, and locally more around roughly 10. There's people before me that have done it, but it's become more popular, I'd say, in the last, I started doing it in 2017. And there was only a handful of us around. So I think conversations like this are so important. And like you just said, the amount of referrals we get from doctors is a lot, but the amount that we get from mom to mom, or from patient to patient, or mom to daughter, or whatever way it goes is huge. So yeah, the communication around that and the openness around that is really important.
So on one side, we've got more communication. Some things are perhaps less stigmatized, or there's less taboo to talk about, right? On the other side, I'm just looking at a CBC News article from August 30th. This is something that spilled over from the U.S., but I think it obviously still applies here. Modern parenting is so stressful that the U.S. issued a health advisory. And here, I'll just read the beginning. Parenting these days can often feel like treading water, begging for someone to throw you a rope, but instead of pulling you out, a passerby gives you a high five and says, I don't know how you do it all. The answer? Poorly, according to many parents. Evidently, the stress is taking a toll. So the U.S. Surgeon General issued a health advisory at the end of August about the impact of modern stresses on parents' mental health, considering the previous Surgeon General advisories for the U.S. were like gun violence, smoking. These are some of the other ones. Now this comes out from the U.S. Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy. And some of the things nowadays, social media, youth mental health crisis, increased financial strain around childcare, other things. Now, I know, again, this is out of the U.S., but how much of this rings true? I'm just looking for your experiences here in this room.
I think, yeah, like when you show up, I remember going to like seeing people without children, like my friends and stuff, and the first thing like they'll say to you is like, oh, like you're doing such a good job, or like, oh, you look so great, or like these sort of stuff. And on the inside, like you don't want to correct them and be like, well, I'm really not, but you might look like you have it all together. And I think there's just this pressure with, you know, the modern mom that we're juggling so many things. And you see the quotes that go around all the time. I actually saw one someone shared this morning, and it was like, moms do it tired. Like moms, you know, we get up, no sleep, and we just do it because we're so used to just doing it because that is the expectation. If someone else can't do it, well, oh, the mom will. When the baby cries, you know, it gets passed to the mom. When something else goes on with the baby, the mom just handles it. And we've become so accustomed, even as women, to just handling it. But I think we need to take a step back and people recognize that, you know, we are handling it, but at what cost to our own well-being and our own mental health and things that we're sacrificing for ourselves.
So what do you say when someone's like, oh my gosh, you're just doing an all great job? Like, what's your response to that?
If it's a mom, I'll have like, oh, you know, like kind of lay it out to, right now I probably am in a place that I've kind of got a little bit of, you know, a good handle on things, but motherhood is up and down. Currently just went back to work, so we were doing really good. You know, now I'm back to work. The baby's kind of at night looking for me a little bit more, so we're kind of in that sleep deprivation again. And I think people think, you know, oh, once you get past the first year, oh, everything's good. Like postpartum, like when does postpartum end? And it really doesn't.
It's forever. Postpartum is forever.
I have a 3.5-year-old, and he is, you know, figuring him out and all of his new things. That is a challenge in and of itself. But yeah, if it's like a mom, and I guess it depends on if the space feels safe enough to address that, you know. I am doing well, but.
Yeah. The safety of the space, perhaps the time you have, where you are, the person. It's like, am I going to actually be honest with this person? I'm going to say, oh, thanks. Like, you know, it's the range.
And a lot of times, if you do say like, oh, you know, like I'm really tired, a lot of times moms, we don't want like just advice thrown at us of, oh, well, do you try this? Do you try that? Really, it's just someone to support you and listen to you and be like, I know it's hard, and offer that empathetic ear. And let you know that, like, you're doing a good job, and not just be like, oh, well, you know, try to get your rest, try to sleep when the baby sleeps. And
I never thought about that. Thanks.
Drives me crazy.
Yeah. I'm just going to pull over on the side of the road here now.
But like on that, I think the other thing that, you know, when you talk about the health advisory, let's think about, you know, when you're going through the pregnancy, you are being followed up by every single medic, you know, and being referred to 1,000 different people. If you feel this, you feel that, you know, there's someone there for you. And then you kind of have the baby. And what most people don't realize is not only have you given birth to a little human, but you birthed a mother. Like you are now, you've also kind of changed, right? And then you have to self-advocate for being seen. Like, no one's calling you up to see how you're, like, maybe you have your 6-week appointment. But the difference of the pace of medical intervention from pregnancy to post is wild. So for someone to finally say, okay, there's a health advisory, I'm hoping that's a cue for us. Let's talk a little bit more about not what's just happening because I spent months researching what the birthing experience was going to be. Like, I read so many books about it, but then I realized I forgot all the parenting books. You know?
And now you're a mom.
Yes, and now I'm in it, and I'm trying to figure it out. So, and like I said, I started the conversation. It's so messy, and it's wild, and the ups are 100 and the downs are zeros, you know, and you're still trying to figure it out and stay somewhat of like a even keel, so you're setting the right example for your children. So there's a bit of acting in between, right? And that's tough.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point about the follow-up care post. And a lot of the times we'll start to see people, maybe not during their pregnancy, maybe they just hear about us postpartum, and we're the only ones following them. So any other referral that they might need for mental health or for different supports, we then have to either go back to their family doctor and get a referral. And a lot of it comes down to the doctors are so busy. I mean, they can only see them for their 6-week check, let's say. But I always make the joke, but not so funny joke, that if you need any referrals to any specialist, do it while you're pregnant.
Right.
Because you'll get that ultrasound or you'll get that x-ray or
Because
whatever.
the attention's
right?
there, but afterwards,
Right.
like you're saying, it just
The
it's
follow-up is tough, yeah. So that's a good point about how people and patients will say this to me all the time. They'll say, when I was pregnant, I could get an appointment, no problem. I was seeing somebody depending on what time in their pregnancy, but every month, every 2 weeks, then every week, whatever it is. And then postpartum, they said, yeah, I called for my 6-week check, got it, and then that was it.
So what needs to change there with that then?
I think there's
Like a bunch of stuff,
Got
yeah.
the list, Carolyn.
I think there's and there's stuff out there. I think there's a lot of people that are coming out, and there's a lot of support out there. It's just, how do we navigate that support and how do we find that support?
Yes,
So a
yeah.
lot of it is through
Social media and
self-referral,
referral and-
social
yeah.
media, and it's, the algorithm. How do you see it? And find it. So creating groups like the Harbor, where we're going to have a resource page that, okay, wow, look at all this stuff that I can access. And sometimes you don't know if, it's actually really funny because when I had my first, I asked for like a pelvic floor physio referral for when I was done, because I was like, I'm definitely going to do this. I probably need it. And then I felt good.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not going to go. And I didn't go. I just didn't refer. I was like, I'm probably fine. And I probably should have went.
You can
but
still go.
I can still go.
People come preventatively.
I didn't have I just didn't know that I probably still needed it, because there was no one ever brought it up again, like at my 6-week check or anything like that. But I remember when I was leaving, I was like, I'm definitely going to need it. But
And the doctors here are really amazing, and a lot of them, they're great. Like if I have a question or anything like that, I can call the majority of them, and they're really fantastic. But it's just the time that they maybe don't have for certain concerns, but them knowing who to then refer to, I'm seeing more and more of, which is really nice. So they'll send off referrals to the right people, or even just giving information about the Harbor, or even Stroller Club, or any of these things. Yeah. The more that the healthcare providers know, I can just speak from my own opinion because I'm not a mom, but the more that healthcare providers, hear these shows and everything, then they know where to put people, which is really great, because again, their hands can be tied sometimes, unfortunately.
About arming new moms with as much information,
Yes, exactly,
so that they know where to go, who to ask for referrals, and all that stuff. That's one solution, even though there can be gaps. But at least there's that, which is even happening more organically, and also with folks like yourselves.
Yes.
I mean, ultimately, it's this, right? It's just being willing to have the conversation, being willing to. The reality is, it's be somewhat vulnerable, because it's tough to say some of the things that you go through. To your point, I think you said you can't call it normal. It can be okay to say it's abnormal.
Yeah, very common. People always think they're the only ones who have this problem, but there's a bunch of people out there. It's just people don't talk about it.
That's right. So I think the conversation. Of course, there's obviously the legislative side. Can we get some more policies that actually, put up a structure that allow us to kind of figure it out in a more neat manner? But we'll be waiting a while. The conversation. The conversation is everything. And, also identifying those individuals in the community that have been advocating for us, like Ashley Power with, AFIT Mama, now a kids club. She started an amazing community. I think one of the first, and acknowledging those individuals, because they've been in it. They can be like, okay, so I get your journey. Maybe try this person, and building your village.
Building network, yeah.
You're listening to The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. Today on the show, we're talking about what supports exist and what's needed for new moms in this province. We're talking everything from health to social circles of support. As you're listening, if you've got thoughts for us, The Signal at cbc.ca. Here with me in studio, we've got Sylvia Bermudez, who's with Stroller Club NL, also a mom, Kalia Cadigan, Amy Pena-Rubia, Carolyn Pridham. On the line, and I love how Tess Hartman's on the line. Tess, how did you find out about today's show?
My mom told me.
There you go.
You know what? Moms are for life.
You got a text from your mom who said, email Adam, which you did, and then I found out you kind of know everyone here anyways. So tell us a bit about yourself, Tess.
So I am the owner of Birch Postpartum Support. So when I started that business, I was solely postpartum doula. So a lot of people are familiar with birth doulas, who are there to kind of support parents as they bring life into the world. And then I am just postpartum. So I'm there when you come home with your baby. So that's what I started doing. And then I saw that there was a lot of struggle with feeding, both breast and chest feeding as well as bottle feeding. So then I went on and certified as a breastfeeding counselor. So now I teach prenatal breastfeeding classes. I do that out of Vitality, Karen's clinic. And then I also do in-home and virtual consults with people to help them with feeding their baby.
What's something as a postpartum doula, and also through your own journey as a mom, what's something either you've learned yourself or that you've heard from other moms in that postpartum doula type of a setting?
Yeah, so I am, like you say, I'm also a mom. So I've got two little ones as well, a 12-ish week old and a 4-year-old. And I think that's something that transcended both my experience and every other mom that I've ever worked with is just that doing it alone is incredibly challenging. And the more that you can build up your support network, the better off both mentally, physically, spiritually you're going to be. That's just like tried and true. And the advice that I give every single person and I give anyone who's listening is don't be afraid to put yourself first. In the work that I do, that's the most important thing is just like prioritizing your well-being as a parent, both moms and dads, and anyone who identifies as anything that's either a mom or a dad or a parent, is put yourself first, because when you're taking care of yourself, you are automatically taking care of that little tiny being as well.
How hard can that be for moms?
Oh, I don't know that there's anything harder.
Yeah.
I think that we're wired to just really go, and always think baby first, kid first. We put ourselves second, we put our relationships second. But if we don't have ourselves and we don't have our loved ones or anyone who's supporting us, on board, you're going to burn out. And I've seen that. Like I've seen, my care starts prenatally. So ideally someone gets in touch with me when they're pregnant, and then we chat and we get to know each other. And then I can kind of be that bridge that knows you when you're pregnant and knows you through your birth and then postpartum. But unfortunately, I also get a lot of calls from people who are like in it, like deep in the bog of postpartum, who are completely burnt out because they didn't know to set up a meal plan. They didn't know to check their insurance and see what sort of services they could get. Was pelvic health covered? Was massage covered for them and their baby? Lactation support. These are things that a lot of insurance providers cover for you, but you're not even aware of, right? So just trying to really set yourself up for success is really, really important. And ideally you do that before your baby's even here. Because as all these ladies know, when your baby gets here, everything gets real hazy.
How often do you have to remind yourself about all this stuff? Because you're working professionally, giving this advice out, but then when it comes to you and reminding yourself about everything you've told others, what's that like for you?
Multiple times a day.
Yeah.
Funny enough, my sister-in-law is also a postpartum doula on the west coast of Canada, and she came home to help our family when we had our second 3 months ago. And when she was leaving, she looked at me and she was like, you need to slow down. Because at that point I was trying to pack up our car. I'm pretty sure we were driving to Central to visit our family as well, which, looking back on it, I was fine and I was happy to do that. And we were seeing our loved ones and it was wonderful. But realistically, it was probably too much at that stage in the game for me. But I did it anyway.
So when she said that, what did you think? in the moment?
I should know better.
Okay.
But to be honest, like it's really, really hard. I think when anyone gives you advice like that, you are immediately defensive. Like to be completely honest with you, and I work with lots of moms who, we ideally have this amazing rapport by the time baby comes, but you get to know me. I'm a bit of a goofball as well, so I try my best to like deliver hard truths like that as lightly as I can. Which is a pretty delicate balance when someone is experiencing either anxiety or depression or even blues, which is, I think the stats are like 80 to 90% of people actually experience blues, both moms and dads. Wow. And then when you look at actual like clinical diagnosis of postpartum depression or anxiety, it's like 1 in 5, and then 1 in 10 for dads, I think. But like, I think it's really, really difficult to have someone tell you like, you're doing too much or you're not taking care of yourself. Like it's hard to hear, right? So that's kind of where a role of like a doula and someone like me comes in, because it's not a loved one who's delivering it, which is even harder. It's another thing I encourage people to do is like have hard conversations before baby comes with your partner, with your in-laws, with your parents, whoever that is, just so you're all on the same page, because having hard conversations when you're also split-brained, like you're really taking care of your infant, that's your whole focus. To have the capacity to have hard conversations once you have a baby in the mix is really challenging. So, postpartum planning is sitting down with someone like myself or another doula or a counselor to really like make a pretty robust postpartum plan is a game changer. And you know what? Even if you make a postpartum plan, there's no guarantee that it's not going to go off the rails. So this is where things like the Harbor come in, and having, providers like Carolyn that you trust and that are like on your side, because you just don't know what your postpartum is going to be like until you're in it.
Tess Hartman, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Tess Hartman there, currently on mat leave, works as a postpartum doula and lactation counselor. Any thoughts on that conversation for the folks here in the studio?
I just learned so much. I didn't know. I didn't even know that like postpartum doulas were a thing. Yeah. But the conversation that she just had, even like, I know we're talking about the motherhood journey and supports for moms, but just to put a plug in there about like parenting and, one thing that me and my husband didn't really have a conversation about like beforehand is, like what kind of parents like do we want to be? What are our things that we want for our kids?
Yeah, how are we going to do it?
How are we going to do it? What are our values? And, it comes down to, like she said, having those conversations when you're like in the middle of it. And a lot of the times those tough conversations are like 2 a.m. when the baby's not sleeping. Like, how are we going to handle it? And yeah, that is like a lesson that I've learned, have those conversations before. But yeah, a great resource there.
Yeah, and I think Tess is incredible at what she does. It's like her calling as becoming a doula. But I want to also elaborate on like doulas aren't just for the first time you have a baby. Like I wish I had a doula the first time I had a baby, but I didn't know about doulas in the province, which is really, really sad because they're incredible. But I did work with Karen Clark during my second pregnancy and second postpartum. And it made such a difference in my mental health, in my partner's mental health, in the transition with a toddler, right? Having those conversations. So like people like Tess Hartman, people like Michelle LeBlanc, people like Karen Clark are doing amazing things. And I wish more mommies knew about them, more families knew about them.
How does it make a difference with mental health?
I think, again, opening up the conversation.
Yeah.
A lot of the doulas have so much experience too. So, one of the things, they even have great conversations about if you have a pet. What does that look like?
Didn't even think about that.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Who's going to walk your dog? If that's going to cause a stress on you, your dog is your fur baby, your first baby, right? So you're like, okay, that's something I didn't think about. All right, well, we can get, my cousin's kid to come walk them 3 times or 4 times or 5 times a week. And just decreasing the amount of stressors in your life makes a world of difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
To add to that, though, it's making the conversation a lot more holistic, right? So here we are, we're talking about, we're focusing a lot on motherhood, but ultimately, if you have a partner, it's involving them in the process, right? Having those discussions, having someone that can help you navigate and anticipate maybe some of the challenges that may come up. Again, it's always a different journey, but having anyone that is providing some level of guidance on how to navigate those rough waters, and involving that help and calling for that help, because for me at least, I think that I'm the type of person that puts quite a bit on their shoulders and like feels like I need to rise up to the task, and it's on me, and I got to figure this out, and I have a hard time asking for help. And learning. I've actively had to learn how to actually raise my hand and be like, you know what, maybe I can't handle all this.
Yeah, especially if you're not naturally wired that way,
No.
right? If your whole life you're like not doing that, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I actually kind of absolutely have to do this.
And I'm still not great. I mean, ask my husband. He's, shout out to Tim for his patience with me. But yeah, we're learning a lot in this, not just how to be a parent and a partner, a different type of partner, because the reality is like your partnership is going to shift. It's going to change, sometimes in good ways, sometimes in bad ways, sometimes, like I said, it's messy. But as you're relearning all these components and pieces of your life, having, again, someone to maybe reference point and maybe build an outline of what you can follow is helpful.
Yeah, I think Tess made a good point about being proactive about things like during pregnancy. I've even had very type A patients come in before they get pregnant. I love seeing them too. But definitely coming in during pregnancy, I find with the birthing experience, but also with postpartum too, knowledge is going to be power. A lot of people expect to go into their delivery and the doctor's delivering the baby, but they're not. You are, right? So, except for if it's a C-section, I guess the doctor takes the reins on that one. But knowledge is really power with that. And I think Tess made a very good point when she said to kind of try to think about those things and plan those things ahead of time. A lot of people come to me when they are pregnant in their second or third trimester, and they just kind of want to get a baseline of how things are. They might not be having any issues, but I'm seeing a lot more patients come in proactively, which is really great to see.
So what do you lay out then? If someone comes to you proactively, what's the kind of gist of what you tell them?
Yeah, so depending on how they're doing. So if they're having any issues, of course, we address that. But typically what we'll do is see them throughout their pregnancy. If they're doing well, maybe monthly. And then throughout that, I'm actually reworking all of this now so that we're very standardized in our clinic. And then we can be more specific with each patient. But just to keep the education-based, evidence-based with the newest research, but then also going through a labor and delivery plan with people, and then postpartum as well. So we actually walk them through kind of what to expect. This is such because you guys can even say what to expect is such like a... Ish term, but what to expect throughout your pregnancy. And then we just add on different education to each session as well. So we'll do, with all of my patients, not just pregnant patients, we typically will do an internal exam if we're looking at the pelvic floor, because we need to see what those muscles are doing, and they're internal. So there's no way of us knowing that unless we do that internal. If people aren't comfortable with it, we work around it. And then we go through education based on labor and delivery, positioning, push techniques. We also offer prenatal workshops as well that are virtual. I have one tonight. So we do those monthly, and we go through pregnancy and postpartum care as well. And that's actually, it's an hour session. It's great because it kind of walks you through everything. And then postpartum, so then we tell people at around 36 weeks, they're off to do their thing. And then after their 6-week check with their doctor, they'll come back in and see us after that once they get cleared.
We've got Renee Pilgrim on the line who just called in. Hi, Renee. How you doing?
Hi, Adam. Hi, everyone. How are you?
Good. Thanks for getting in touch with us. Thoughts on what we're talking about today?
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm glad I tuned in. I love the signal, and this is a conversation that's really interesting. I'm an acupuncturist registered here in Newfoundland and Labrador, and I work in St. Anthony and North Point and St. John's, which is where I am right now. I've also studied to be a doula, and interestingly, I've studied a lot of fertility acupuncture, so helping people get pregnant, stay pregnant, get the baby out, and then help them recover from pregnancy. So acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine specifically, so we have a lot of offerings through every stage, and helping people recover, which I think is a lot of the conversation right now with the postpartum. And so we will be looking at, helping people build blood back, helping people circulate blood through the body, obviously managing pain, and, a lot of pelvic floor issues after, delivery of the baby is certainly something that we do a lot of work around as well. And I think it's really interesting, and I'm so glad that you guys are having the conversation. I agree with whomever said earlier, we just need to keep having the conversations. And it's really important for moms. Not a lot of people talk about it, or parents. People are having babies, but the body goes through quite a bit. It's quite a significant thing. Like, as a doula, I've seen several babies born and help people through a process as an acupuncturist, as a friend, as a family member. And it's quite significant. I don't think we realize, and yes, women have been doing it since the beginning of time, and that's very true, but it's still something we want to take care of, because it's the preventative work that really helps with low back pain later on. It helps with people's just energy, immune system, helping build back their regular menstrual cycle. And that affects, people don't recognize, but we do in Chinese medicine, and, holistic is a word that, I know that your speakers are using, because we want to take care of every part of a person. But, building the blood back and the health and the strength of blood flow in a body is really significant for our mental health, for our digestive system, for our circulatory system. So these are all things that we would think about and that we treat.
Renee, I appreciate the call as always, and I hope you're well.
Yes, thank you so much.
Cheers. Renee Pilgrim there, friend of the show. Any thoughts on what Renee was saying? I'll push through, because I was curious about, we at the beginning of the show, we made a promise to talk about Stroller Club, and I'm just like, you know what, we really have not talked about Stroller Club yet. So can we talk about Stroller Club? What is it? How does it work? And why is it?
Yes. Okay. Absolutely. So first and foremost, I will say, yes, I may have started the idea, but it is no longer my baby.
It's like 700 members strong or whatever now following on.
Grown,
it's gigantic.
And it's because
690 this morning. So
there you go. See,
so there you go.
Amy knows more, because there's this tremendous group of other women right now that are running it. Sarah, Jess, State, so many.
Takes a village.
It takes a village, yeah. So I'm transitioning back to work. So it's no longer mine. And, but yeah, it was one of those things. Like I said, I was feeling lonely. I'm not from Newfoundland. I feel like I struggle making friends in my early 40s. And I'm just not hitting the clubs or whatever it is. So I figured, let's start a different type of club. Maybe a bit more lame, but so it's just walks. Just get out of the house, meet other people that are going through it, and now it's not just parents that are having that have had children, but also those that are expecting, other caretakers that grandma, grandpas that want to participate in getting out and just talking to other people, building their community. That's what it's all about. And we have walks in CBS, Mount Pearl, Portugal Cove, St. Phillips, and Barring Park now.
One thing I really love about Stroller Club, I will say, I love the community aspect. I always say with any of the postpartum fitness classes, I obviously don't know every single one in the city. And the community is the biggest thing. That's what I always encourage if moms are doing it. And if there's any restrictions on from a physical level, I'd give them restrictions for the class that they're in. But with Stroller Club, what I love is that any fitness level can do it.
Yes.
Right? Like any pace, so it really is more focused on the community, still getting out and getting active, which I think mental and physical health will benefit from. But I don't feel any reservation if a patient wants to go and do that. I go, absolutely. Because it's, you're not going in the first day and doing burpees. Right?
Yeah, no, exactly.
And there's literal zero pressure.
Yes,
show
exactly.
up if you can.
Yeah.
Show up. Like,
just come hang out.
Just come and hang out if you can, right?
Yeah,
Because
totally.
oftentimes these things are also, you need to pre-register, you need to think about it, you need to pay for it.
Yeah, it's free.
Like this
Yes.
is zero
Exactly.
pressure.
Yeah, love it.
Zero responsibility on your end unless you feel like it and you can. And that day your baby is happy and in a state where you can actually take them out of the house. Right?
Absolutely. Like the focus isn't like the fitness side of things.
No,
It's just community.
The connection side, right?
Connection.
Yeah.
And still being active.
You go for a bit of a
Still love
walk, and it could be more of an intense walk next time or
Yes.
less or whatever, depending on the day.
And what was
And now we need to figure out what we're going to do in the winter. You know?
What was really cool about Stroller Club was that when we just created, the space, or you created the space on Instagram, and we kind of launched that and rolled that out, people were messaging us and being like, hey, like me and 6 of my friends, we walk on Barring Park on Wednesdays. We started doing our own walk because, the Tuesdays, Thursdays didn't work for us. Can we expand that?
Wow.
So the CBS and the Barring Park walks, and even the Mount Pearl, they're all ran by different people who are like, this is my area. I'll just lead a walk. So what we've done now is we've put like a message out there for other people in the community, other moms at various stages in postpartum, to come on as walk leads. And what we're trying to do is kind of cycle that out that, okay, so, this person's maternity leave ends here. Who can carry that on? Because there's been communities, like this isn't the first community to exist like this. Every summer there's kind of different ones on the go, but unfortunately, when people return to work, they kind of trickle out with when that mom returns to work. So, like, how can we make this sustainable, and how can we make this, like a permanent thing and pass it along?
Yeah, and it's something that's replicable across Newfoundland and Labrador, because we'll talk oftentimes there's like socioeconomic stuff, there's a rural-urban divide, there's lots of different challenges that folks can face depending on where you live, what your background is, if you're a newcomer or not, all of that stuff. But then when you have something like this type of a club, it's like, actually, we can have one in St. Anthony, or we can have one in Happy Goose Bay, and it's about folks, parents, moms, connecting, grandparents too, dads, and to talk about what it's like to be a parent and where the gaps are and what's needed.
Adam, that's the dream, right?
Yeah.
Like if we could just help in any way possible for, regardless of where you're located, to have a way of perhaps more organically meeting people, then we've accomplished an amazing thing.
Totally.
So when we look at the road ahead, as we're making some plans for the launch for the harbor in the fall, what work's going to be done around that? Lots.
Yeah, I've had like a lot of, what's been lovely about the harbor is I've got to meet a lot of incredible people. Conversations every week. I had one with Tess this morning. We met at Bannerman, had a coffee. But we'll be at Baby and Me Boutique run by Milestones, so we're partnering up with them to put that off. I think that's important because we can get out into the community and shake some hands and meet people face to face. So I'll be there, and my little baby will be there too, and our founding members will be there throughout the day. So that'll be really nice. We're also going to have like an information session, which will be the week following the boutique, so that people can join and ask questions, and we'll just give them information on what to expect, show them the platform that we'll be using, because they'll be able to access us through a website or an app, and then we'll launch on the 1st, and we'll probably do a little launch party in November, so that'll be fun too.
Cool.
But it's been like, it's a passion project, right? Like, I'm on maternity leave. I work with a great company, Colab, who has like given me the resources. I'm an engineer by trade, but this is something that is so important to me. And I think, families need, and the goal of the harbor is for healthy, happy families. And that's like all we can ask for.
So then if there's moms to be out there, or folks who are perhaps thinking about maybe starting families, and you look at your positions, whether it's as a mom or professional or both, what types of advice would you give yourselves then at the start of the whole thing, or for someone who's just thinking about getting into the whole family side of things, looking at what you've learned, all that you've learned, and we only have a few minutes left of the show. So I know we could do a whole other show on that, but
Be gentle with yourself.
yeah.
Be nice to yourself.
Ignorance is not bliss when it comes to becoming a parent. I wish I could go back and hug myself, like in those, those first like few months of postpartum.
Yeah.
Because it's a ride. It's beautiful and wild, but it's tough.
So would you say, what would the message be if you hugged yourself? It's going to be okay. You can do it. What else would you say?
I think it'd be like what you're feeling is normal.
Yeah.
And talk more about it. Because once I did,
Give yourself grace.
Yes.
Give yourself
Yes.
grace. I think that,
100%.
we're so hard on ourselves and like you always have those moments like, oh, I should have done this. I should have, been more patient at this. Listen, we all have our times where we're not our best selves. Recognize it, call it out, own it.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Anything else? Other than, you said be, what was it you said? Be
I said
gentle?
be gentle with
to
yourself, like, be kind
do you,
to
Do you still
yourself.
remind yourself of that now? Is that is that
yeah.
a continuous thing?
And I think the things like when we show up and we have conversations with other moms and we're like supportive of other moms and we're, being empathetic with other moms, are we doing that with ourselves?
Yeah.
Are we
That's a really good
saying the
point.
same thing to ourselves, that little voice in your head in the middle of the night, that we would say to our friend, right? So, yeah, be gentle with yourself, lots of grace, lots of understanding. But I think when I look back at it, I don't think I would change how I did things because I think the experience that I've had
Made you
has
now.
made
Yeah.
me this strong mom. And I think, sometimes we have to go through it and we have to ride the waves to become this stronger person. But yeah, lots of grace, lots of learning, just understanding.
I think be proactive is what every patient says to me. They're like, I wish I had come sooner. So that's just from a professional standpoint. Multiple people say, I wish I had come to you before I gave birth or whatever. So
Yeah, the
knowledge is power.
Yeah, the hindsight bit, right? It's like, oh, that would have been nice to have known if only I
Yeah.
had just done that and tried to plan. Like, because the one thing, a through line through a lot of the show today, it's like, well, just, yes, plans change. It's not going to be the same. It's going to be very different for everyone. But at least if you have the knowledge laid out in advance, you can make perhaps better decisions
And make a
sometimes.
plan that works for you.
Yeah. And you're helping keep yourself kind of safe into the future for as things evolve.
I
Yeah.
think it's also interesting, like, totally other show.
Here we go. Pitch another pitch.
Series.
No, but like I think that there is something to be said about the dad's role, and maybe it's not a dad like, partner role, like in that process, right? It's
That's the one common denominator. Like everyone's experiences are different. Everyone's experience of becoming a mom, postpartum, all those things. But the one thing that every mom, every family needs, it's support.
Yeah.
So even for the people out there listening that aren't moms that are listening to this, like if you love a mom, if you know a mom or a family or a dad or whatever, how can you do better to support them?
Yeah, parental support. If you're a single parent, if you've got a blended family, whatever you want to call it, the parents out there need support and help, and they need to know what's available around, and connecting with others to kind of find out that they're not alone is a big, big part of all of this. I think we're almost done. Any final thoughts before the theme song starts to play in like a minute and like 30 seconds or so?
No, thanks so much for the opportunity. It was
Thanks for
lovely.
coming in. Thank you all for taking time.
It's a great
And you can find all of us on Instagram.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Hit us with your Instagram handles before. What are your Instagram handles if folks do want to find you?
Aim Penarubia, Penarubia. Nice Newfoundland name.
My clinics is Vitality Wellness NL for Instagram and via_project for the clothing.
Excellent.
And for the Harbor, we are the Harbor Community with a U, Harbor. And you can also find us on Slumble Baby as well, SLUMBLE.
And stroller.
at Stroller Club NL.
Get it to 700. We're almost there.
Almost there. But I just want to say, those tights that you make are amazing. So, yeah, everyone check those tights out.
I'm going to check them out because I didn't know that they were specifically for
Via-shop.com.
postpartum.
Thanks so much for the conversation today, Sylvia, Kalia, Amy, Carolyn. Thank you so much.
$6.91.
That is it for today's show. Folks, if you got thoughts of the show, get in touch with us, thesignal@cbc.ca. You can call the Signal line and leave a message, 709-576-5260. What day is it today? Wednesday, right? Moving into Thursday. Tomorrow here's the conversation. The school year is underway, and with it, you get these annual calls for drivers, right? Folks out on the roads to slow down and pay extra attention as they drive, especially in and around school zones, but everywhere, really. Here's a question for you. What do you think about road safety in this province? What do you think about the safety of our roads? Should we build better drivers? Should we build better roads? Bit of both or neither? I want your thoughts on this tomorrow on The Signal. Until then, thanks for listening and stay safe out there.